You are listening to The Call-In, a series of conversations recorded by Array with filmmakers of color and women of all kinds to discuss feature, narrative, and documentary work. This conversation with Array releasing filmmakers Sterlin Harjo, director of Love and Fury, and Ainsley Gardiner and Briar Grace-Smith, the co-directors of Cousins, was recorded on February 14th, 2022. Both films are now streaming on Netflix.
Tēnā koutou katoa, he mihi tino nui, he mihi mahana ki a koe Sterlin, me Briar hoki, ko Ainsley Gardiner tōku ingoa, he uri no Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Pakiao, me te whakatohia. Kia ora, I'm Ainsley, and today I'm with my friend Briar.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou, ko Briar Grace-Smith ahau, he uri ahau no Ngā Puhi Ngāti Wai hoki. Kia ora. I'm Briar Grace-Smith, and I'm a filmmaker from living in Paikakariki, New Zealand.
So Briar and I are a couple of Maori filmmakers, Māori filmmakers from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and we've known this filmmaker, Sterlin Harjo, for a long time. Sterlin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, kia ora. Hence J, Sterlin Harjo. I am Seminole and Creek from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a filmmaker. And yes, I am old friends with these two. Feels like we're just catching up. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I know, actually it's been about 3 years since we saw you in Sundance talking about Cousins. So now you are part of Cousins, came out on Array, joined the Array whānau. I've lost all sense of time, but now your film Love and Fury is part of the Array family and being released on Netflix. How is that, bro?
Right. I mean, it's so cool to think back to, you both getting the Meritamita award, and then watching, and reading Cousins. And, I remember like sitting outside one time giving notes, and we were talking through it, and just to see it happen was amazing. And I even got to watch it again. Yeah. And yeah, it turned out so good. It was great.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, Love and Fury, I've only just had a chance to see it, thanks to Netflix. But quick question, Briar and I identify around the world as Māori. Do you identify as Indian, or are you just Seminole Creek? I always wonder this when I talk about my Indian filmmaker friends, whether that's a catch-all phrase that you guys like or don't like.
Yeah, I mean, we say Indian, like I was even listening to an interview with Buffy St. Marie last night, and on the Broken Records podcast, and she mentioned that too. I mean, we all say Indian, but we also say Native. It's all sort of interchangeable, Indigenous, and then a lot of times we will say our specific tribes. It's kind of like however you feel, like that day or that time or that moment,
It keeps people on their feet.
Exactly. It's all very interchangeable. I don't say Native American much. I feel like that was sort of like white people say that, but like, or maybe non-natives feel more comfortable saying that. But yeah, I don't say that as much. Yeah. Unless I'm talking to someone that has no idea. Like if I'm talking to like a European and I'm just like trying to explain, and if I say Indian, they're going to be thrown off, they're not going to know what I'm talking about. So sometimes I'll say Native American in that circumstance. Yeah.
So we met in 2005. I think you had Goodnight Irene at Sundance that year, maybe, and we had Tamatu, I think.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the old days, man.
Yeah, but actually, and now you're a pretty famous guy for Res Dogs, also amazing.
Isn't that crazy though, the connections? I mean, like, there's been this like cultural sort of back and forth and this connection with Māori people and myself and other Native filmmakers. And I don't know, like being able to, there's something that's been so cool about being able to check back in with each other over the years. And I think like Bird and Merita, they very much kind of, taught us or fostered that, where we would meet up every couple of years and check back in with each other. And it's always been love and support. So it felt really good when Tyke and I got a project together and joined forces. It felt really good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because you were a script advisor on Cousins, and we met you at I think it was a bagel place in Park City. And I just remember sitting down with you because we had had all these international advisors in the past, and over the years I've had that continually. And I was thinking how easy it was to sit down with you and not having to explain everything, and how fluid that conversation was, and how you helped very easily to inform the story, and how those connections between us as Indigenous people just keep growing. Ainsley and I both supported Dennis recently, and her as a producer and me as a script person on Night Raiders, and it just keeps growing.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like, you know, and I found that too. I mean, like with Tyke and I, it was the same thing. And when I made Reservation Dogs, you know, I had all native writers' room and directors, and it was the same thing where you're talking about. It was like you didn't have to explain anything, and it was so smooth and fluid because of that. And Dennis is coming this season to be a director on the show. You know, like, I don't know, it's just like I love seeing the sort of evolving community that we've created over the years, you know, and being able to I don't know, give back and also bring people along and you know, support, because we've all, I don't know, when we were coming up and doing this, there was no roadmap on what we're going to do or what our careers are going to be. It was very much kind of like, see what happens. And I think that's sort of the spirit of Love and Fury, which is like, you know, it's almost like grabbing these artists and capturing this and filming them in that moment where I think we were all at as a film community 6 years ago, 7 years, in that period where it was just like, we knew things were happening and it was bubbling. There was so much beauty and just like, you could just feel that electric sort of like, when you're all together, you feel this like, oh, something's happening and you don't know what's going to happen. But you know, you're living in a special time and you're a part of something. And I think like following these artists is kind of, was trying to capture that a little bit, you know, like trying to capture that feeling a little bit.
Just to pick up on that, when I watched the documentary, there were a whole lot of things that kept coming at me. There were so many flashes of things that I identified with in terms of what people were producing, their art, what they were saying. But the overriding theme after I sat down for a while afterwards was that sense of community. And there was something about your style of storytelling, which I thought, I don't even know if you thought about it, but the way you wove the story and the people together, the subjects together, that also embraced a kind of a community way of telling a story.
Yeah, no, it was really purposeful. And I thought about that a lot. And I didn't want one individual I didn't want to make a film about one individual. I wanted like it to feel like one narrative, but people just pick up and tell parts of that narrative because everyone's kind of doing the same thing and we are a community. And I just thought like we could all like all of them can piece together this sort of collage, this communal sort of story. And that even moves into Reservation Dogs, where it's a show about community, you know, it's about a community. And the way that I filmed it is about community. I mean, like, it's about making it with my friends. It's about having people that have never worked on a film crew stepping up and being on a film crew, you know, and you know, making people really feel a part of something and making them feel like the work's important, because I think that in our line of work, it's easy to, if you get too caught up in the business side of it, it's easy to forget that we're telling stories. And I think that those stories, I mean, what is a story other than, you know, it's very communal. It's about community. That's what a story is, you know, that's why it exists, because you can gather around and someone telling that story. And I think that that's why I've never liked VR in a way. Is like, I just think that it cuts the community aspect of storytelling out. It's a very individual, you know, it's a very individual way of experiencing something. And I think that's what I love about the cinema, is that we go into a cinema together and we have this experience. And so, I don't know, I just, with my work, I've always tried to remember that and tried to, you know, if I was miserable making films, I wouldn't want to do it. but I try to have a good time and have people have a good experience while making it. And that's what's really important to me. And with the film Love and Fury, I've just been noticing, I've been friends with a lot of these artists and noticing people having similar conversations no matter where I went. And, you know, Native art has been one thing for a long time in the States, but the real artists, there's the market, which is one type of art, but then there's the artists that I follow, which they're not concerned with the market. And I wanted to show that because this side gets a lot of attention because white people pay for that work. But I wanted to show this side because these are the real artists and they're the ones that are going to make the most impact as we look back over the years. And I've just been friends with these artists and hearing them, the similar conversations everywhere I went. And it's talking to people that some of them aren't so confident in their indigenous identity. Some of them, they have flaws. They have history. They have, some of them don't look quote unquote indigenous, and like I wanted to just show all of that. I wanted to show all of that and just really celebrate a lot of that, and but also I wanted it to be very organic. So I feel like the community aspect of it comes through that, where I would I'd be filming one person and then I'd meet another person, but let me film you for a little bit. It was like I just let it happen as it was happening instead of like
oh, sorry, Sterlin, did you bring them together? There are times when the artists are together. Was that kind of naturally occurring, or was that part of the
naturally occurring? Like at one point, I go to New York and I'm filming one artist. Well, then another artist is like, I'm going to be there and doing this. Like, cool. Well, then I met another artist. Well, then they all went to one artist show at the end, and I brought, they're all together. I'm like, I gotta film that, So it was very like just sort of organically happening that way. I went and followed Micah P. Henson on tour in Europe and happened to call my friend Chanupa, and he was like, I'm going to be in Plymouth, England, doing a sort of R&D for a project. And I was like, well, then we have to go film you. So it was like, and it was on a budget. I made this film for like a couple $100,000. So, it made it look like we had a lot more money, that we're like traveling around Europe, even though it was just like, all right, pop here, pop there, go back home, go raise more money to see if you can get to New York, so.
And Micah said something that really resonated at one point in the documentary. He was talking about misogyny, I think. These could be my thoughts too, because I was recently having this conversation about, as soon as men realized that women could literally grow human beings inside them, they were like terrified. And then they're like, shit, man, we better take control of this situation. And watching your documentary, I was feeling that way about Native makers, because the way that we're able to make across the spectrum, right, and be so fantastic across the spectrum, and not just in telling our trauma stories or telling our cultural stories or painting our traditional paintings or singing our, but actually, yes, that, but so much more.
He's like, men are so fucking afraid. He's like, we're like a little lizard and you're this goddamn dragon, and like, I love that. And it's like, I think that it speaks to that sort of unspoken power. I think that, that I think that in Indigenous communities is a lot of times not necessarily celebrated, but honored. It's like there is that that power that you don't have to talk about, but that is like, that I think is like there with females, and like it's natural. It's about creation, and like, and I find it interesting in the film, like so many of the female artists are performers and do things without speaking a lot, like the men like to talk, like we're sort of talkers, but like I love that the women, like it's a lot of like song and body and using bodies and stuff. I don't know. It's just something that I observed after sort of putting the film together. But yeah, I don't know, like there was something that happened on the Reservation Dogs set. I have female directors, and the script supervisor told one of our female directors, Tasba, they said, they were like, I've never seen like because it was like Native men and then Tasba, in the producer's tent. And she was like, I've never seen people like treat like women in a producer's tent so well. Like I've never seen like they're like bringing you food and stuff. She's like, yeah, what of it? Like of course, that's what they do.
As bad.
Yeah.
But I felt like that kind of the relationship between the kind of white expectations of Native art, Native filmmaking, and where we kind of sit on that spectrum was really relevant as well. And I mean, Taika's always done it, but I see you do it as well, just kind of breaking the expectations and the rules for how we should tell stories. Yeah. And you've always done that. Comedy's massive, we're always telling trauma stories, but we don't have to tell them traumatically all the time, or we're always speaking about whakapapa or ancestry. These things are just inherent in everything that we do. And I was reading something you said about, I think it was 4 Sheets to the Wind, that, you're dealing with a young Native man who's drinking, but it's not about alcoholism, and he's having a relationship with a white woman, but it's not about, Yeah,
I don't know what that is in me. Like I have this like anti-authoritarian sort of like rebel bent to me that like everything that I feel like I'm supposed to do, I try to find ways to break that. And it's like, and going back to 4 Sheets to the Wind, and I just want to show, because I think that it's because it's been so false, the representation of us, like to this day. I mean, like it's and it's not like necessarily offensive all the time. It's just wrong. It's just like how can you tell a story about Indigenous people without including their humor? Like you've been missing that. Hollywood's been missing that all the way up until this year when Reservation, it's like how have you missed one of the biggest things about us and who we are? Obviously you didn't know us. And so because of that, I've always just been like, I'm gonna like tell stories that subvert expectation and not what people think. I mean, I made a film called This May Be the Last Time that's about Muskogee Creek hymns, and it's not like the coolest thing in the world to walk into a room and say, hey, like a room of natives, and say like, hey, I'm making a film about songs and they're Christian songs. It's like not the coolest thing to do. Like there are like more traditional songs, but like I wanted to tell something that people hadn't heard before. And also the songs are beautiful, but also about how those songs, what they mean about survival, like how they exist and how they and they exist because of survival. Like that's why they were embraced. And so I don't know, I'm always looking for that other angle. I think it's just always kind of been who I am.
I saw Joy Harjo pop up in the documentary, and I remember her. She's someone whose poetry I love, and she's visited Aotearoa a few times, but I remember her coming back here about 15 years ago to my children's marae, to their standing ground here, and it snowed. Like it never snows here, and the marae is on the beach, and she walked on and the snow started falling. So they people were really blown away by her presence. But there was incredible.
She has such a presence. It's like she lives here in town now, and I just run into her. It's like you're going down the sidewalk and then you see Joy, and all of a sudden your next hour shifts into, oh, this special person's here now, and now I'm here, and it's like I find it interesting. I mean, like people sometimes she works on a different plane, and it's like she's brilliant, and the way that she's in touch with just the other side and everything, like she's in touch with things that you can't see, and that's where her poetry comes from. And people don't always, when they first meet her, I think it can throw people off if you're just meeting her like a casual person meet someone, because she's not on this place of like chatting, it's just like she operates on this other level. And once you get to know that, you operate what you can go there with her, but like it's not just casual conversation. It's always funny to me to be in a casual conversation with Joy, because I feel like I should be talking about the cosmos with her all the time. You know, it's interesting. She's so great.
Yeah, there's that great quote that one of the artists you profiled uses: "I release you my terrible pain."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome, and I was thinking about, you know, the vulnerability that artists have to have in order to create really truthful work. And I wonder if you yourself, do you ever, I mean, do you ever think about that, or do you, because it requires you to be bold, right? Some of the stories you tell, and do you ever think about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think both of you probably know I'm a pretty sensitive guy, and you know, and you can see it in my work, and it's about death, and it's about losing people, and it's about how we deal with that, and that's what I'm always thinking about. And it's like, that doesn't come with like, I don't know, that doesn't come with confidence and bravado all the time. Like, that comes with like, not fear, but like vulnerability, and not having the answers, you know. And it's like, there's something vulnerable about that. There's something like, I feel like I'm always asking the questions that I don't know, and I operate from a place of being a child still, like not knowing what any of this means, but trying my best to act like I do, and hopefully capturing something that is truthful, and still never knowing if I'm right or wrong, but like capturing something that feels truthful and maybe help someone else, you know. It's a mystery to me. Like Reservation Dogs is about losing someone, even though it's a comedy. And it's just something that I've always, you know, I think that when I was young, like my mom lost a baby whenever I was 5, and it would have been my brother, oldest younger brother. and it took years for me to realize the effect that that had on me, because, you know, my brother, there was a funeral and everything. Like, my brother lived 6 hours before he died, and I'm thinking back, it's like, it's the first time I saw my uncles cry, you know. And there's something so sensitive to watch your uncle cry about a baby that he never knew, but that's love between family. And I learned so much by just looking over at the funeral and seeing my uncle cry, you know. And then like, you know, I was 5 and no one thought to check on me, because they were dealing with it. My parents were dealing with it, you know, and it was devastating. But I remember going back to class the following week, and the sort of student teacher who I liked a lot, and not as a white lady, she said, how was your weekend? Like, how were you? What'd you do over the weekend? And I said, oh, we had my brother's funeral. And I just said it like matter of fact, you know. And she asked me to come outside with her, and she gave me a hug and said, I'm so sorry. And it was like, that's the first time I cried about it. And it was like, she was the first person to, in the storm of what was happening, she was the first person to like check on me, you know. And I know that had this profound effect on me, like losing this and seeing that. But then after that, like, I mean, I've been a pallbearer 9 times. I have like a 9 or 10 times, I think 12 now actually. And I have a big family, so someone was always passing, and you know, we were always just helping each other and seeing each other through that. And so that's been like this crazy thing for me, seeing death at a young age and having to try to make sense of that. And in a sense, I've been trying to make sense of it since, with every project, even like Love and Fury. It's like, it's a different angle of like me trying to make sense of it, but it's following artists who are trying to make sense of it all, you know. And it's like I learned something through following them, you know. And I also get strength in meeting artists like you, or anyone that like are also trying to do the work, you get strength and you learn from them. And so I don't know, like I feel like it all comes from a similar place, you know.
Are you always, as well as kind of trying to explore, because I feel that as well, I feel like pretty selfish as a filmmaker, even as a producer, supporting other filmmakers, because I'm always looking for answers for my own kind of internal sense of self, or who am I, how do I fit in, what's my purpose, and that sort of thing. So I always feel secretly quite selfish about the filmmaking process. And then at the same time, I'm really, I think I've always been aware, but I'm more and more aware, and have never been really allowed to be unaware of the fact that the storytelling also serves the community in exactly the same way, to make sense of themselves and their place. And yeah, are you consciously aware of your kind of responsibilities to your people?
Yeah, I think I always have been, because I just come from such a big family, strong, big family, that the fact I was always conscious of the fact that I got to do this stuff. And I had a lot of cousins, and I was the artist always, like, which A, meant I was a little weirder than everyone, but B, I also kind of like was a leader of my cousins. But I was always thinking just outside of them. Like I was always the one doing art, and I was always the one drawing. I was always the one that could draw good, and always kind of did things differently. So I was always aware of my place fitting within that community, and I always felt like I belonged, but I always felt a little bit like I could see it from the outside a little bit. Like I was outside of the house looking in the window. I still belonged there. I was still home, but I was looking in the window. And I was always so, I mean, like, I feel like I got my formal education in storytelling through elders just sitting around my grandma's kitchen telling stories, fascinating stories, like magical, funny, like amazing. And like, just the history of our family, you know, and like, that's where I definitely got my education in storytelling. And it's what I've been trying to capture since. And I've succeeded and failed a lot doing that. But like, I think with Reservation Dogs, it was the first time that it all really came together in the way that I wanted it to, and the way that I've always dreamed of it happening. Was like, I had humor, sort of this magical spiritual element, and reality all coming together. And it was the first time that I did that mix the way that I've always thought I could, you know. And so it was the first time that I felt completely successful in what I've done. Not that there's stuff that I wouldn't have done different, or like problems that I have with it, but it is the first time that I've done something where it was better than what I thought it could be. And it felt completely realized from the beginning, you know. So so that's a good feeling, you know.
Do you think that part of that is just experience and
Yeah,
collaboration?
it's a mix of experience and support, you know, like the budget. I mean, I've never, you know, I've made like the Dallas Goldtooth character on the horse, the spirit guy that's funny. Like I've done that character. We've done that character together before, but we never had a budget to put him on a horse, and a horse that could also like fall on command, and like, you know, like, and also a fog machine, you know, like we just never had the support to do something on that scale that it deserved. You know, it deserved that scale, but I was making $150,000 films, you know, to try to tell these stories and try to sell these elements that I was only able to sell with a bigger budget and support.
Are you working on, I'm sure you've got multiple ideas, but is there something coming up?
Yeah, I mean, like immediately, we just finished writing season 2, and I'm in prep right now for season 2. So we start shooting in March. And I have a couple other projects in development. There's a film that I really want to make, because I also still love features. It's not like, I mean, TV's been great to me and changed my life, but like I still love the feature film. And there is a film that I'm writing about a woman in sort of 1950s who makes her way into LA. There was a Native community in LA. They were all relocation. They were all like sent there for the Relocation Act and ended up having a community in LA in Bunker Hill. And, you know, it's like 1950s sort of like slicked back hair and like cigarettes rolled up in your sleeve, you know, chinos, like just a really cool style. And I'm writing this film noir that takes place in that time period, which, you know, you all know something about doing period pieces, but like that's really what I want to do. And it's been cooking for like 2 years and I haven't written anything. I just kind of know what it's going to be. There's a little bit of research that I have to do, but yeah, it's about her going to look for her brother in this community. And so yeah, that's what I really want to do next as far as feature films go.
You've made a lot of docos, right? I feel like, have you made more docos than?
Yeah, I've made a lot of short docs. I've made 2 feature docs. I've made countless short docs. I want to do another documentary. I mean, I have this idea of doing a documentary on my dad. I just think like sort of a biography of my dad. He's an interesting story. And I don't know, I have an idea of doing a more experimental documentary about him. And you know, like I just think that like, again, like he subverts expectations of what a Native man is, you know, like he taught martial arts since I was 4.
Wow.
And you know, still teaches kickboxing to this day, and was like heavily into Bruce Lee, and was a champion fighter for years. And like,
you know, I've just got this great idea, Sterling. I mean, it's all yours if you want to. When we met you all those years ago, we used to refer to you as Indian Taika.
It's hilarious.
Anyway, so I think you and Taika should make a documentary about your dads.
Oh,
where you both, where you both play your dads.
Oh yeah.
It's like, but it's like a kind of pseudo documentary where your dads meet.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. You know, that's funny. Like, I mean, that's how we bonded. He and I the first time was like talking about our similarities growing up, but then our dads are very similar. I mean, like, I mean, at the time we were talking, both of our dads were rebuilding a Harley in their like sheds or whatever, and they never, you know, my dad still hasn't finished his, and like, you know, it's like just like very similar, you know, like in the way that they are. It's funny.
Well, you know, when Taika's dad passed, he wanted his bike buried with him.
Yeah. And
it didn't fit. Yeah, amazing the similarities you have, but also going back to that thing that, you know, we have been lucky enough with the support of people like Mera Sameta and Bird Running Water and others to be able to cultivate these relationships. And I think this is what I got from Love and Fury as well, is that we're actually stronger as a community, and that our successes are one person's success actually is a collective success. So for us, you know, to be successful, for you to be successful in whatever way it is, for us right now, and for you it's having a film on Netflix. Res Dogs, massive success, but you've already kind of said this, sometimes it's just kind of reaching our small communities or one person with the kind of work that we do. So I feel like we've all been very lucky to be together at a time where we had kind of unlimited possibilities, and we've all sort of been able to move together pretty strongly over the last close to 20 years, 15 years.
And just to add to that, I want to say how much your work is celebrated here, and how much posts, especially about reservation dogs, take up my sort of timeline on Facebook.
Awesome.
We all relate and connect to and love your work, love the humor.
Awesome. That's so great. I really miss it there. I can't wait to go back, and I hope that we all, I mean, it's funny because this pandemic is so anti-community. It's like the most anti-community that could happen, and it's like, in a way, I was so happy to be able to make something like Reservation Dogs in this period, because it's sort of, I don't know, it felt like I was, we made it during the pandemic, but it also felt like it was combating the pandemic in a way. It was trying to bring us back together and show our connections. And I think about you two, and I think about everyone, and I think about, my friends in Australia and New Zealand, and it's like, we're lucky. I mean, we were blessed to have been a part of this thing that we didn't know was happening when it was happening at all. We probably would have acted better.
Luckily.
But it's pretty special what happened, and it's I love you both, and it'll be great to see you in person again.
Yeah, you too. Well, congratulations on Love and Fury. Beautiful documentary screening on Netflix. Really can't wait to see what you do next, and can't wait to share with you what we do next.
Same. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.